Okay, I wanted to spend a few minutes just talking through uh, the basics on how to structure a documentary. Now, there's lots of different ways to structure any sort of video production. This is a more conventional approach, so it's not like a hard and fast set of rules. It's just we'll give you a few basics to work with. Now, what we're looking at is the Adobe Premiere sequence. Now, as you'll see, I've got a whole heap of tabs here. These are earlier drafts, different tests with sequences, that sort of thing. This one is a kind of almost like a trailer, but it allowed me to find the best shots, essentially, the shots that told the story in the best way. This was actually produced first before the main documentary. Anyway, what we're going to be looking at is this sequence. But before we do that, let's just go to a Word document. And some of these are very basic, but I want to go through them anyway. The first thing, when the viewer first starts watching, surprise, surprise, you would have a introduction. This allows the viewer to focus on what the film is about, introduces some characters, it establishes the setting, the location, it presents a conflict if that's what your documentary's setting up. It sets up a problem, asks questions, sets the tone of the film, engages the audience, and asks a question. Oh, that's a bit repetitive. Anyway, these are very similar to similar kind of ideas that you would have in any type of production, even a short story, a newspaper article. They're just as applicable to a short documentary. Now, if we go back to the timeline, I decided, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I decided that I wanted to show this little sequence to show the how the fact that I was interviewing people. I wanted that as a stylistic approach. I wanted a few little parts at the top here that showed the audience that we're making a music video, just like a few scenes of what they will see later in the documentary, and of course the title. Then we have the first interview subject. Now, this particular person was able to articulate the answers as well as these sort of cutaways. Also, Brad, who is from Energy Groove Media, his responses, these two responses were able to answer the bulk of these areas. So they're pretty much outlining what's going on for the audience. Once we have that established, we go to the body. Now, the body is the main plot, or more about the characters, what they're doing, why they're doing it. We see the action unfold. Should be, as a ballpark figure, 80% of the film, and it's what's happening in the documentary. So if we go back to Premiere and we zoom out a little bit, essentially the body is from about maybe from about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes in, all the way through to almost to the end. And so, because this is a documentary about students making a music video, it was really important to have those students in the body of the documentary. Now, how I ordered them, I wanted this person, Brad, who is one of the lecturers, up front, so that he's kind of like he kind of ushers in the body of the documentary after we've seen the introduction from Dave and Brad. And so once he stops talking, he sets a bit more of the context, but then from here on in, we've just got student after student after student. Because I had so many, and I knew that I wanted it to be about 15 minutes, I had to be very mindful of how long each student was talking for. But they all have cutaways, they all answer specific interview questions. I'm just going to scrub through. I had decided by the time I reached this point, maybe the audience was getting a little bit bored, so I cut in these little sequences that have music, there's no talking, and then we get back into the interviews. So that pattern, I mean, this is very structured and very almost rigid in its approach, but that's just because I had so many students and I wanted to give them equal time. So we go through that pattern. I won't watch all of it with you, and then we reach somewhere towards the end. Significantly, I'm towards the end there. I could have easily put myself at the beginning, or at least more towards the beginning, but I just decided, well, it was a little bookend because Brad, who is a facilitator, is at the front. Where is he? There he is, and I'm there at the other end. Oh, and Brad makes a re-emergence. Now we'll go back to the Word document because we've reached our conclusion, which is wrapping up or giving a closure. It's a bit of a summary. It's recapping the points of the story. What you have introduced or promised in the introduction needs to be delivered. Now, in a lot of ways, that could be delivered by the body of the documentary, but it makes for a more satisfying experience. And then, how has the experience changed the characters? Back to Premiere, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. The conclusion essentially is, well, Brad actually serves part of the conclusion in that it was a great job well done type thing. And then this student had a particularly insightful response with one of her interview questions. So I just decided to use that single response, which is basically signaling to the audience that the students are going to use these skills when they move into after they graduate. So that was enough for me in this particular project. I didn't want to overwork it or anything like that. Keep it nice and simple. I decided that was an adequate and appropriate conclusion because it does wrap it up. It gives closure. Significantly, this shot here of us exiting the studio, this was one that I identified. I used it at the end of the trailer as well. It actually is in reverse. It's when I filmed this, it was walking up to the window, but it worked a lot better. And then, of course, I've incorporated credits and kind of B-roll type footage just as a stylistic thing. So this has a bit of a false ending in a lot of ways. So this is kind of concluding as well. So hopefully that will give you a very basic overview of how you might structure a documentary